Hello and welcome to another Forza Horizon 4 video where today we're actually going to be talking about the differences or some of the changes we would like to see between Forza Horizon 4 and Horizon 5. Now before we get started, at this point in time we don't yet know if the next Forza release will be Horizon 5 or Motorsport 8, but it's looking increasingly likely that it will be Motorsport 8. If this is the case, then Playground Games will of course have roughly a year and a half left to continue working on the next Horizon game, and potentially fix some of the issues that may be of the biggest concern. Also, keep in mind this is all coming from the perspective of someone who only just recently got into Forza Horizon 4 about 2 months ago. That being said, I have been playing racing games my entire life and I already have well over 100 hours put into the game at this moment in time. So let's get started with what I personally believe is the biggest issue that needs to be resolved before the launch of Forza Horizon 5, and that is the networking and server issues. Now again, I've only been playing the game actively for a few months now, so there is a chance that the servers were significantly better closer to launch, but in their current state, the game can become increasingly more frustrating to play when you're trying to play with a group of people or a bunch of friends. I regularly stream the game multiple times every week over on Twitch, and I personally enjoy playing with all of my viewers. Unfortunately, a lot of the time is spent reconnecting back into sessions or loading back into the open world after doing a race, or somebody in the convoy won't even receive the invite to a race that was supposed to be sent to everyone, and then they get kicked and have to rejoin after the race is over. As you can see, this can become really tedious and tiresome, and for some people this could be the reason why they might choose to play a different game instead, if they can just avoid the frustration entirely. Now a lot of this I'm sure is due to the open world nature of the game, but I still think they need to look into the idea of allowing convoys to have a more basic lobby style if they really just want to do a bunch of races without constantly reconnecting back into the open world. And even beyond that, there isn't really much of an excuse for taking multiple minutes to reconnect back to the open world, just so you can then queue back up for another race or do anything else. On top of this, when searching for certain online adventures, it can take upwards of 10 minutes before you finally connect to an event, and even then, it's likely that half the people in the event will leave before it's completed. This is most apparent in the ranked adventures where I regularly wait 10 minutes just to get into an event, only for there to be 3 or 4 of us left once we get to the final race. It's not exactly fun when every event seems to go this way, and it's probably a big reason why so few people really participate in ranked in general. But that's enough about the server issues. Let's move on to the second thing that I think needs to be improved before moving on to Forza Horizon 5, and that is the audio. I'm not the biggest car fanatic in the world or anything, but in a game that's so focused on having a huge amount of variety in the types of cars you can drive, you would expect a good amount of effort to be placed in each one of those cars. However, a lot of the cars sound absolutely terrible and many sound exactly the same. The most obvious reason behind this that I can think of is that they compress the audio a lot so that the game size wouldn't be hundreds of gigabytes like something like Call of Duty is nowadays. Especially since the game is primarily aimed towards those playing on a console, even though I'm on a PC which could easily deal with the file size, it's easy to see why they wouldn't want to prevent most of their player base from enjoying the game at all just because they couldn't install it. One approach I could see in terms of fixing this would be giving the player the option to uncompress some of the audio files at the expense of hard drive space. If you have some expanded storage on your Xbox, or if you're on PC like me and you already have a ton of space to begin with, I think you should be given the option to make use of that space so that you can experience higher quality audio while playing the game. This obviously doesn't resolve the issue of a lot of the cars using seemingly the same sounds, but for the cars where they did individually record the audio, it would go a long way towards improving the overall immersion factor of the game. Alright, now on to the third thing which I believe needs to be changed in Forza Horizon 5, avatar cosmetics. And this might be a somewhat controversial opinion. I know a lot of people like making their avatar look cool and they feel special when they get a legendary hat or something, but I personally don't think that it adds anything to the game and it makes the game feel more cluttered than it would be without it. Forza is a racing series, and because of that I think essentially all of the focus should be on the cars and the racing and the driving experience. I'm perfectly fine with cosmetics being in the game the way that Playground has implemented them, and that you don't really have to pay anything extra to potentially unlock everything. But because this is a racing series, I think it would be a much better idea if the cosmetics were for your car, instead of for your avatar that you don't even see that often anyways. Outside of the loading screens, and if you're driving a convertible, you're probably not even seeing your avatar anywhere near as often as you are able to see your car. I personally would enjoy getting some cosmetics like a new bumper, a new side skirt, or a new rear wing for my car than I would about getting the 50th color of some basic shirt for my avatar, and I feel like a lot of other players might feel the same way as well. Now I'm not saying that they should get rid of all avatar cosmetics entirely, but I don't think they should be as big of a focus as they seem to be. If they want players to customize their avatar, I think they'd be better off allowing us more customization of the avatar themselves, beyond using a bunch of presets and then being able to change their clothes. That could just be me, but let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. So the fourth thing that I think they need to improve, and this is something that might affect some people more than others, is the drivatars or the AI or whatever you want to call them. In pretty much every racing game, the AI are generally bad in one way or another, whether it's them crashing into you as if you aren't there, being way too slow, way too fast, or anything else, and Forza Horizon 4 hasn't really been any different. Supposedly, the drivatars are supposed to mimic the personalities of the players they are named after, but from what I've seen, it's still essentially random. I personally don't care too much about the personality traits, but it would be cool if this could be more apparent in the next game because I'm sure it's a feature they don't plan on removing. Now on to the actual driving issues with the AI. My biggest issue with them is that they don't have to abide by the same rules as a player in terms of physics and other things like waypoints. Pretty frequently I'll notice that one of the AI will completely miss a checkpoint and continue on like nothing ever happened, even though as a human player, if I do the same thing, I'm punished a lot if I'm online, and I have to use rewind if I'm just playing in single player. This isn't the biggest deal necessarily, but it would be nice if they had to abide by the same rules as everybody else. Rubber banding is really a big issue in the game as well. I'm sure if you've played the game long enough, you've come across some of the AI that is so incredibly dumb that they get stuck trying to drive through a house on the side of the road. You wouldn't expect them to have any chance of catching back up, but they regularly do because the game artificially increases the amount of speed, grip, and just overall ability that they have once they fall far enough behind. And again, this isn't the biggest issue most of the time since a lot of people focus on playing online, but it can be incredibly frustrating if you're doing a seasonal event against unbeatable drivatars who don't have to follow the same game mechanics as everybody else does. There was a trial event not too long ago that a lot of players were getting frustrated with because the AI was too good given the track conditions. The track was very bumpy, and in order to stay within the waypoints, everybody else had to be a bit cautious or they'd be sent back in time. Meanwhile, the AI could just drive wherever they wanted and gain a huge advantage. If you're going to have a challenge against the AI, the challenge should at least be fair so that if everyone performs really well, they can win the race, instead of having to sort of game the system in order to earn their rewards. I know a lot of people completed the event by having members leave if they ever had a small mistake, so that the people who managed to complete the run flawlessly could eventually get their reward and just move on. Speaking of seasonal events, let's move on to the fifth thing that I think they need to change or improve heading into Forza Horizon 5, and that is the seasons system. I don't personally know if they intend on keeping the system around heading into the next game, given that we know absolutely nothing about it yet, but if they do, there are a few changes that I would like to suggest. A lot of games nowadays like to use the games as a service mentality that constantly adds new content over the lifecycle of a game, and it constantly gives players something new to aim for. Overall, this is a pretty good idea because it prevents players from getting bored and moving on to something else after just a few weeks. Unfortunately, seasons are too short for some people to conveniently obtain some of the cars that they would otherwise want. So if they keep the season system, I think they need to double the length from 1 week to 2 weeks to allow players more time to actually complete the events they need in order to unlock what they want. Some people may not like this because they can play the game every day for multiple hours, but for some of the players who may be busy with work or school for a few weeks at a time, they may miss out on getting some really good cars and have to hope that they can get them the next time the season comes around. One way I've heard about that would be a good way to solve this issue is allowing players to do previous season's content if they've already completed the content in the season that they are currently in. Some games do this and it allows for players to take a break for either work, school, or just because they wanted to play some other game for a while, and then they can come back when they want and unlock all the content on their own time. I'm personally a huge fan of this because you don't have to try and rush to get everything unlocked right away if you know that you can always go back and get it anyways once you've completed the season you're currently in. And just as a small little annoyance, I would like it if the game allowed you to choose the season you're in when you're in the open world. If I hop into the game and I want to cruise around with some specific street car, but it's winter, I'm not going to have as much fun because the car might just be sliding around everywhere. This is already an option in custom events, so I don't see why they wouldn't be able to let us choose the events while in the open world as well. But anyways, that's all I really have for this video. Feel free to let me know what you all think about these suggestions, or if there's anything I left out that you personally feel needs to be changed for the next game. I might make another video similar to this one soon with a few other issues that I think should be fixed, but they didn't really fit in with the rest of this video, so keep an eye out for that. If you're new around here and you've made it this far in the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really helps me out and lets me know that you guys enjoy seeing this type of content. Also, if you'd like, feel free to check out my Twitch channel down in the description. I regularly stream Forza Horizon 4 3 times a week, and I stream some variety content on the weekends, and I'd be happy to chat or play some games with you when you stop by. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.